The champagne flute stopped halfway to Senator Whitmore's lips when the three men in dress blues entered the ballroom. His face went slack, then gray, then something close to green. Behind him, 200 guests in evening were turned to look. "That's not possible," he whispered. One of the seals, the oldest, with a chest full of ribbons, locked eyes with me across the room. His hand snapped up in a salute so sharp it could cut glass. Let me back up. The invitation arrived on embossed cardstock, my name misspelled. Ms. Sarah Whitmore, instead of Commander Sarah Chen Whitmore, USN. My husband David's mother had addressed it, continuing her 7-year tradition of pretending I'd never kept my name, never earned my rank, never existed as anything but an accessory to her son. "You don't have to go," David said, reading my face. "It's your father's Senate campaign launch. I have to go. He'll make comments. He always makes comments." What I didn't say, I was tired of being invisible, tired of being introduced as David's wife, who was in the Navy. Past tense, diminished, erased. The Whitmore Hotel ballroom glittered with Washington power. I recognized senators, lobbyists, defense contractors, and military brass in their dress uniforms, Army, Air Force, Marines. I'd worn a simple black dress, sleeveless, the fabric carefully chosen to hide the scar tissue on my right shoulder and upper back. My hair was down, softening the angles I'd worn sharp for 16 years. I looked, I knew, like any other political wife. Perfect. Senator Whitmore held court near the stage, silver-haired and commanding in his tuxedo. He'd done one tour in the Army, 30 years ago, and had built an entire political career on it. His study was a shrine to his service, photos, his Bronze Star, his combat infantry badge. He spoke at veteran events, chaired the Armed Services Committee. He'd also spent 7 years telling anyone who'd listened that his daughter-in-law had wasted her potential on some support role in the Navy instead of going to law school like a serious person. "Sarah," David's mother Patricia descended, air kissing near my cheek. "You're here. We weren't sure you'd make it, with your work schedule. I wouldn't miss it. And what is it you're doing now?" David mentioned something about consulting, intelligence analysis, contract work mostly. "How nice." Her tone suggested it was anything but. "David, your father wants you for photos." "Sarah, you understand, just family for these." I understood. I'd understood for 7 years. David squeezed my hand, apologetic, and let himself be pulled away. I found a table near the back, beside a Marine colonel and his wife who nodded politely and ignored me. The speeches started. Senator Whitmore spoke about service and sacrifice, about his time in uniform, about understanding what military families needed. The crowd applauded. Someone started a "Whitmore for President" chant. Then he began introducing family. David, the successful surgeon. Patricia, his partner of 40 years. His other son Marcus, a prosecutor. Marcus's wife, a federal judge. My name wasn't mentioned. I sat very still, hands folded, breathing controlled. An old technique from the worst firefights, when your heart wants to race and your training won't let it. The dinner service began. I picked at salmon and risotto, making small talk with the Marine colonel about nothing important. Then Senator Whitmore appeared at our table, trailed by a defense contractor I recognized from the news, a man who'd made billions on body armor contracts. "Colonel Morrison, good to see you." Whitmore shook hands, then noticed me. "And Sarah, you're here." "Senator, Sarah's my daughter-in-law," he told the contractor. "She was in the Navy for a bit. Some kind of desk job, wasn't it, Sarah?" The table went quiet. "I did intelligence work," I said evenly. Right. Analysis," David said. "Safer than real combat roles, but everyone contributes, I suppose." He smiled, the expression not reaching his eyes. "Though I've always thought it was. A shame. You had good test scores. Could have gone to Yale Law, made something significant of yourself. Instead you spent, 8 years? Looking at reports other people wrote." 16 years, I said. "And I made commander." Of course. Rank inflation these days, though? Not like my generation." He turned to Morrison. "Colonel, you understand. Real combat leadership versus administrative roles. There's a difference." Morrison's expression was careful, neutral. "Every role has value, Senator." "Diplomatic of you." Whitmore chuckled. "But we both know who the real warriors are. My Bronze Star came from leading men under fire in Grenada. Sarah here, she probably got her promotions for PowerPoint presentations." The contractor laughed. Morrison didn't. I kept my voice level. I did my job. Sure you did. A job someone had to do, I suppose. But let's not pretend it's the same as actual service. He clapped my shoulder, the scarred one. Pain lanced through old nerve damage. I didn't flinch. No offense, Sarah. You're a wonderful mother to our grandchildren. And that's what really matters now, isn't it? I didn't have children. He knew that. The jab was deliberate. He walked away, the contractor following, already discussing campaign contributions. Morrison leaned toward me. Ma'am, that was inappropriate. It's fine. It's not, but I understand. He paused. What kind of intelligence work? Before I could answer, the ballroom doors opened. 3 men entered in navy dress blues. Seal tridents gleamed on their chests. And everything changed. The oldest Seal moved through the crowd like water, purposeful and unstoppable. He was maybe 50, with gray threading his temples and the kind of weathered face that came from 1,000 missions. His ribbon rack was impressive, bronze stars with valor devices, a silver star, purple hearts. People stepped aside instinctively, recognizing predators even in formal wear. He stopped in front of Senator Whitmore, who was mid-conversation with a group of donors. Senator Whitmore? Yes. My father-in-law turned, smile ready, hand extended for a potential voter. And you are? Master Chief Petty Officer Daniel Rourke, SEAL Team 3. He didn't shake Whitmore's hand. His eyes swept the room until they found me. Sir, I'm looking for Commander Chen. The room contracted. Blood rushed in my ears. I'm not sure who. Whitmore started. She's here, Rourke said. It wasn't a question. I was told she'd be at this event. He walked toward my table. The other 2 SEALs followed, one about 40 with a hard, scarred face, the other younger, maybe 30, built like a defensive lineman. Colonel Morrison stood up reflexively as they approached. The military instinct to respect special operations, even across service branches. Rourke stopped 3 feet from me. His eyes were gray, steady, and filled with something that looked like gratitude mixed with awe. Then he saluted. The other 2 SEALs snapped to attention beside him and did the same. Ma'am, Rourke said. It's an honor. I stood slowly, confused, my mind racing through possibilities. Master Chief, I think there's been a mistake. No mistake, ma'am. Your commander Sarah Chen, retired. Call sign Oracle. Naval Intelligence, attached to JSOC for 12 years. His voice carried in the silent ballroom. You were our intelligence officer. Oh God. You have me confused with someone else, I said quietly. The classification. The NDAs. The entire architecture of secrecy I'd lived inside. Zargan, Afghanistan, 2014. Rourke's voice was steady, factual. Our team was 30 minutes into a hostage rescue when the whole op went sideways. Intel said 5 hostiles in the compound. We hit resistance from 20. Ambush setup. You were in the TOC, monitoring our comms. Morrison was staring at me now. So was everyone in earshot. Ma'am, you heard the firefight in our audio feed. You pulled up ISR footage, found the enemy reinforcement convoy 60 seconds out from our position, and you rerouted an Apache gunship without waiting for approval up the chain. Rourke's jaw tightened. You saved 8 SEALs and 2 hostages that night. I was one of those SEALs. That was classified, I managed. It was. For 10 years. Operation was declassified last month. He gestured to the younger SEAL. Petty Officer Marcus Chun, no relation, pulled those hostages out of the compound. He was 20 years old, first deployment. You talked him through the extraction on comms while coordinating fire support. The younger SEAL nodded. You had the calmest voice I'd ever heard, ma'am. Building was coming apart around us, and you sounded like you were ordering coffee. You told me exactly where to move, exactly when. We made it to the bird because of you. Senator Whitmore had approached, David beside him. My husband looked stunned. His father looked suspicious. This is quite a story, Whitmore said. But Sarah was an analyst. She's mentioned it, looking at reports, making PowerPoints. Sir, with respect, your daughter-in-law was a targeting officer for Joint Special Operations Command. The 3rd SEAL spoke now, his voice carrying authority. Lieutenant Commander James Park, SEAL Team 6. Commander Chen built target packages for our operations. She synthesized intelligence from 17 different sources, found patterns no one else saw, and pinpointed high-value targets in some of the worst terrain on Earth. That's not, Whitmore started. She worked directly with McChrystal, McCraven, and 3 different JSOC commanders. Park continued like Whitmore hadn't spoken. She was embedded with Special Operations for 12 years. Not in a safe office, sir. In forward operating bases, sometimes inside target countries, where intelligence officers don't usually go. She volunteered for it. David grabbed my hand. Sarah? I couldn't talk about it, I said. It was all classified. The missions, the units, the locations. Everything. You told me you did analysis work in DC. I lied. I'm sorry. I looked at him, my husband who I protected with silence for 7 years. I couldn't tell you where I really was or what I really did. The NDAs were that strict. Rourke pulled out his phone, tapped it, and held it up. The photo showed me in tactical gear, body armor, rifle slung across my chest, standing in what was clearly a joint operations center. I looked younger, harder, my hair in a tight bun. Behind me, barely visible, were operators prepping for a mission. Kandahar, 2012, Rourke said. That was our TOC. You ran intelligence for 6 months straight, 16-hour days, during the heaviest operational tempo of the war. You built the intel that led to 47 successful operations, including 3 high-value target captures. He looked at Whitmore. Your daughter-in-law has a classified personnel file that most general officers would envy. She was nominated for the Defense Superior Service Medal twice. She earned it both times. The ballroom was dead silent. The Oracle, Morrison said suddenly. Holy Christ. I've heard that call sign. He was staring at me like I'd materialized from legend. You're the intelligence officer who predicted the compound assault in Abbottabad 6 months before it happened. You built the pattern of life analysis on the courier. That's still classified, I said weakly. The operation isn't. Your name is. Morrison shook his head slowly. The intelligence community talks about you. Not by name, but by reputation. The targeting officer who never missed. Who worked miracles with incomplete information. Why didn't you tell us? David's voice cracked. Why didn't you tell me? Because I signed documents that said I'd go to federal prison if I disclosed operational details. Because the people I worked with, I gestured at the 3 SEALs, operated in the darkest places on Earth, and talking about it could get them killed. I looked at my father-in-law. And because every time I tried to explain my service mattered, I was told I'd chosen a support role, an easy path, that I hadn't done anything real. Whitmore's face had gone ashen. Rourke stepped closer to Whitmore, his posture radiating controlled intensity. Senator, I've done 7 deployments. I've worked with every kind of support personnel the military has. Logistics, medical, communications, intelligence. Most of them are professional and competent. He paused, letting the words hang. Your daughter-in-law wasn't competent. She was exceptional. She was the best intelligence officer I ever worked with in 26 years as a SEAL. His voice dropped, harder now. And she did it in conditions most people can't imagine. She worked through rocket attacks. Through indirect fire that shook the whole compound. She went 48 hours without sleep during time-sensitive operations because lives depended on her being sharp. I didn't know, Whitmore said, but it sounded hollow. You didn't ask, Park said flatly. You assumed. You dismissed her service because it didn't look like yours. Because she couldn't talk about it, so you decided it didn't matter. David still held my hand. The scars on your shoulder. You said it was a training accident. I was in a compound in Iraq when it took mortar fire. 2015. I stayed at my station, kept working, until the building was evacuated. Took shrapnel from falling debris. I met his eyes. I couldn't tell you the real story. It was classified. All of it. You were wounded in combat. His voice was barely a whisper. Yes. And you came home and let my father tell you that you'd chosen an easy path. I came home and tried to build a normal life. That meant staying quiet. Morrison approached, his expression one of deep respect. Ma'am, I served in Fallujah. I know what combat looks like, what sacrifice looks like. What you did, working intelligence in a war zone, making life and death calls under fire. That's as real as it gets. He glanced at Whitmore. More real than a Bronze Star for being in Grenada when the main fighting was already over. Whitmore flinched like he'd been struck. That's not fair, he started. Fair. The younger SEAL, Marcus Chun, spoke up, his voice shaking slightly with controlled anger. Sir, you've spent this whole evening talking about service and sacrifice. About understanding the military. But you don't understand. You got your medal, you got your story, and you've been dining out on it for 30 years. He turned to me. Ma'am, I was 19 when I joined the teams. 20 when I did that rescue op. I was terrified. The whole building was falling apart, bullets everywhere, and I had 2 hostages who couldn't walk. I thought we were all going to die in that compound. His eyes were bright. Then your voice came through my headset. Calm. Clear. You told me there was an Apache inbound in 90 seconds. You told me to move to the north wall, that it was the weakest point. You talked me through punching a hole, getting those people out, reaching the extract point. He paused, composing himself. You saved my life that night. Saved those hostages. And you did it from a room 3 miles away, with nothing but cameras and radios in your brain. That's not a support role, sir. That's combat. Different kind, but just as real. Patricia had appeared, her expression stricken. Sarah, I don't. We never knew. You never wanted to know, I said, not unkindly. I was convenient as a disappointment, as proof that David could have done better. Rourke pulled an envelope from his jacket. Ma'am, this is for you. Admiral Richardson retired last year, but before he did, he pushed through some declassifications. Your name can't be attached to most of your work publicly. National security. But the SEAL community knows. We remember. He handed me the envelope. This is a letter from every SEAL team commander you worked with. 37 operators signed it. Men who are alive because you were smarter and faster than the enemy. My hands trembled as I opened it. The letter was simple, typed on Naval Special Warfare Command letterhead. Commander Sarah Chen, your dedication, courage, and exceptional skill in combat intelligence operations directly contributed to the success of countless special operations missions and the preservation of American lives. You represent the finest traditions of naval service. Fair winds and following seas. The Brotherhood remembers. 37 signatures below. I couldn't speak. Couldn't breathe around the sudden tightness in my chest. David wrapped his arm around me. I'm so sorry. God, Sarah, I'm so sorry. I should have known. I should have asked more questions, pushed back when my father. You didn't know because I couldn't tell you, I said. But you could have believed me when I said my work mattered. You're right. I could have. He looked at his father. We both could have. Whitmore stood very still, the color returning to his face in splotches. I made assumptions. I was wrong. His voice was formal, senatorial. Still performing. You were cruel, I said quietly. You made me feel worthless. Every holiday, every family dinner, every event, you made sure I knew I'd failed, that I'd wasted my potential, that I wasn't good enough for your son. That wasn't my intention. Yes, it was. I kept my voice level. You needed me to be less than you. Less than David. Less than your version of what service and success look like. Because if I actually mattered, if my 16 years meant something, then your one tour and your career built on it became less impressive by comparison. The words landed like grenades. Whitmore's jaw tightened, but he couldn't argue. Morrison stepped forward. Senator, if I may, I've served with a lot of people who did one tour, got their medal, and never let anyone forget it. And I've served with people who did 20 years of quiet, essential work that saved lives but earned no public recognition. He looked at me. The second group are the real heroes. Commander Chen is a real hero. Rourke nodded. Sir, you're launching a presidential campaign on your military service. That's your right. But you should know, the special operations community is small. Word spreads. How you treated your daughter-in-law, how you diminished her service. He shrugged. That'll spread too. It wasn't quite a threat. Just a statement of fact. Whitmore's political instincts kicked in. Commander Chen, I owe you an apology. A real one, not a political one. He paused, seeming to struggle. You're right. I needed you to be less than me. Needed someone in the family to have done less, achieved less, so I could feel like my service still mattered most. His voice dropped. That was insecure and petty and wrong. I'm sorry. It wasn't enough. Could never be enough to erase 7 years of casual cruelty. But it was something. Thank you, I said. David pulled me closer. We're leaving. This is supposed to be Dad's night, but I don't care. We're going home. No. I straightened, found my voice, my command voice, the one I'd used in operations centers during firefights. Stay? Do your photos. Support your father's campaign. But stop letting him diminish me. Stop staying silent when he or your mother or anyone else treats my service like it was nothing. I met his eyes. I need you to be my husband, not his son. Can you do that? Yes. God, yes. I should have done it years ago. The three SEALs moved to leave. Rourke paused beside me. Ma'am, there's a reunion next month. Team guys who deployed to Afghanistan during your time with JSOC. We'd be honored if you came. I'm retired. I'm not sure I'd fit in anymore. You fit in fine, ma'am. You're one of us. You always were. He smiled slightly. Fair winds. Following C's, I answered automatically. They left. The ballroom slowly resumed its buzz of conversation, but everything had changed. People looked at me differently. Morrison introduced me to three other officers, real introductions, with my rank and my background. Patricia hovered nearby, clearly uncertain how to approach. I found champagne and stood by the window, looking out at the DC lights. David appeared beside me. What do we do now? He asked. Now? You go take photos with her family. I'm going to finish this drink, and then we're going to go home. I leaned into him. Tomorrow, we're going to have a long conversation about who I really am. Who I was. What I did. The parts one can tell you, at least. I want to know everything. You can't. Some of it's still classified. Some of it always will be. I turned to face him. But you can know that I served honorably. That I saved lives. That I mattered. Can that be enough? It's more than enough. He kissed my forehead. I'm proud of you. I should have said it every day for 7 years, but I'm saying it now. I'm so damn proud. The words I needed. Finally, Senator Whitmore approached one last time, alone. Sarah, what do you consider? That is, the campaign could use someone with your intelligence background. Advisory role.